Hey everyone, it's Chris Loud. In this video, I'm using one of my favorite creative warm-ups, doing a 10-minute intuitive black and white abstract painting focused on a specific composition type. But in this video, I'll be doing 3 painting demos, each with a different composition type. So I gave myself just 10 minutes for each, so these are very loose, playful, and spontaneous. And while the materials are simple, the benefits are anything but. So why do a 10-minute black and white warm-up focused on composition types? First, it jumpstarts your creative flow. It removes that pressure to make something finished or really good. There's no overthinking, just getting into the zone. So working with only black and white simplifies things, and that actually sharpens your eye. You notice balance, contrast, rhythm, and structure in a whole new way. And the best part, it's quick and easy to fit into your day. These warm-ups are low stakes, super effective, and honestly, they're kind of addictive. So this first painting is based on the S-curve composition, which uses a soft flowing line that leads the viewer's eye through the piece like a path or a river. It's great for adding a sense of movement and a calm, organic rhythm to abstract work. You see this a lot in landscape paintings where there's a path. A lot of times that will be kind of in a shape of an S or even a Z sometimes. So I didn't quite finish developing the composition during the 10 minutes, but I spent about 5 minutes on it after finishing these 3 paintings. And I'll show you the completed version at the end of the video along with some close-ups. And you'll be able to see where I start working on that S-curve. It might not, jump out at you right away, but you'll see in the end kind of where that came from and how that developed. And for such a quick painting, I really liked how this turned out. That's part of the beauty of these exercises. You start something, explore, and then let it evolve over time if you need to or if you want to. So I was just using a Caran d'Ache water-soluble wax pastel or crayon here to make these lines. And those of you that have seen me, any of my videos know that I like stripes. I get those in there sometimes, really wherever I can. And that's a white charcoal pencil that I'm making all these thin lines with. And I'll put the materials that I used, which are very few. I'll leave those in the description if you want to see more about those. And just using some charcoal and a blending stump to try and get a little bit of depth with this. And I'm using watercolor paper that's taped down to 8 by 8 inch section to paint on here. So the second piece plays with the radial composition. So everything radiating out from a central point, kind of like ripples or sun rays. It's an intuitive way to create visual unity and a strong focal point. So radial layouts naturally guide the eye from a point on the surface outward. So they work really well if you want a piece to feel balanced. But you can also use it to portray energy if I can speak correctly, which is really kind of what I'm doing in this painting, trying to have this piece that has this energy to it. And I kept this one very minimal, but that's the nice thing about focusing on composition. You don't need a lot of detail, just a good structure and some contrast of the black and white can really carry a piece. So I put down some water droplets and, realizing that I only had 10 minutes, try to dry it as quickly as I could, move some of the water, that loose paint around into those lines, and then realized I needed to soak some of that up with a paper towel, and then using a black water-soluble wax pastel to start getting a little bit of value in here in kind of a mid-tone. And I'm just using a 99-cent brush that I got at a hardware store that I trimmed the tips of it off, so it's very scratchy, and that's what I'm using on this to get that paint down. And again, these don't have to hit you over the head. These composition styles can be subtle, more like a feeling than a formula. And this is probably, of the three, the one that might be the most obvious when it comes to this composition style. At the end, I'll show you some close-ups of each of these paintings. I'll show you the final pieces, and I'll also kind of show you how that composition is laid out, just briefly, just so you kind of get an idea of what I was looking at. And some of them, like this one, will be very obvious to you with the style of composition it is. But for as quick and simple as this one, I thought it was pretty effective. I really like this, and it's kind of fun to look at it in different orientations at the end. So we're moving into what I think is normally, of these three, the boldest one, the X composition. However, I'm going to go for a more subtle one on this as well, which kind of helps enhance the focal point. So this style uses intersecting diagonal lines to create an X shape that typically will add drama and directional movement. It's great when you want to add some tension or a structure without losing the wild, spontaneous energy of intuitive painting. And right here, I actually really like where this is going right now, how this is looking. And I think it gets even more interesting. And I probably could have stopped pretty early on with this, but I kept going. And again, those of you that watch my videos know sometimes I will go a little bit further than I needed to, just continuing to play, and that's kind of what I did with this one. But with that said, I like where the final painting went as well. So I'm using a little bit of water soluble, or water-based, spray paint, and just a torn piece of edge of the paper to create these little square marks on the page. And I really liked how that looked. Kind of almost gave it a film reel, or a not film reel, but like a film look to it. So this painting, like I said, was a bit of a journey. I found myself loving this earlier version as I painted, but I kept going and ended up somewhere totally different. And that, that's the thing about working fast and without a plan. You have to trust your gut and just kind of let go of perfection. And honestly, that's kind of where the magic is. These short warm-ups are perfect for experimenting. They help you make bold decisions because there's just no time to second guess. And even if the final result isn't what you expected, you're still learning. You're still making discoveries. You're still painting. And they're also a great way to prepare for larger projects. I often come back to these and use them as thumbnails or jumping off points later. They're like little idea factories. And all three of these were done with just black, white, and the values in between. Simple tools, but they help you zero in on what really matters: shape, rhythm, balance, and structure. So on this one, like I said, I've kind of went in a completely different direction, and here in a minute, I can see the X already. You might not be able to, but I will use a smaller mat to start looking at smaller pieces of this, and right away I will see that X is really kind of showing up in a diagonal form. So But right there, you can see that X. And so this piece I ended up cutting. So I'll show you some close-ups of the first piece here. And I'll show you the final piece with the overlay. So here's the final piece. There's where the S is. And here it is in different orientations. So I'll show you the other two with some close-ups on final piece. So if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, feel free to subscribe. And as always, if you have any feedback or questions, I'd love for you to leave me a comment. So here's some close-ups in the next piece. And I'll show you the radial composition there. And some different orientations. And I think this one really worked well in every orientation. I'll show you some close-ups of the final piece here. And this one has, like I said, a very subtle X, but I'm also going to show you a couple of little X's that made it in. So here's that big X and the smaller X's, and some different orientations there. So give this a try. Thank you so much for watching, and keep on painting.